is Aeternum Radio, broadcasting from the peaks of Shattered Mountain to the New World.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Aeternum Radio. I am Slacker, joined by my two hosts, Big Papa.
Howdy.
And back from the grave, Ruko.
Hey everybody, I'm back.
Ruko, welcome back.
Thank you.
How was your trip?
It was good. Good to see family. Good to take a little break from work. But, didn't get to play as much of the beta as I wanted, so that's
And now you're going to have to wait
half
even
of the beta.
longer to get back to it.
I know, tell me about it.
We're going
It's
to talk
be
about that
miserable.
here in just a second. So you can listen to this podcast live by watching us on Twitch at the Slacker Project, or by joining us on Discord. We have like a little way that we can record and you can listen in. By doing so, you can catch more after the show with questions, Q&As, additional thoughts. We kind of chat a little bit after we're finished recording, and you can join us there, and we can kind of get comments from the audience, which is a lot of fun. Aeternum Radio is available wherever podcasts can be heard, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even on YouTube. And today, we've got some pretty interesting stuff to chat about. So first, we're going to go over the news. There has been a big update with the launch date. We'll get into it in just a second. Then we're going to dive into our feature review, where we actually want to talk about different strategies that we have for release. As our listeners, we're going to let you in on some of our secrets that we kind of picked up while playing the closed beta, or things that we hope will work really well during that time. Then we are going to share a little bit about the world around Aeternum. We want to talk about some industry news that has kind of crept up over the past week or two. If you are involved in MMOs at all, you've certainly heard about it, and we want to talk about it a little bit. Finally, we want to end with an opinion segment where we want to talk about fast traveling inside Aeternum and whether or not mounts have a place inside the game. So that is our starting point, the breaking news of the week. And it's a good thing we're actually recording this. We actually typically record on Mondays. And today we're recording on, what is today? Wednesday?
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah.
And the news broke, yesterday?
Yep.
The release date for the game has been postponed.
I'm a little shocked, honestly. I was almost certain they weren't going to push it back anymore. And based on what we saw in the beta, I thought it was close enough to release. Yeah, they had some bugs and stuff that needed to be squashed. But I didn't think there was anything majorly game breaking, and I thought it'd been fine for a release. You're always going to have some bugs when you release, regardless of how long you spend. But I don't know. I'm thinking maybe they're going to try and add something else or really improve based on the closed beta feedback that they got to maybe change or tweak some of the systems they have.
Yeah, and that is the reason why they are pushing it back, as they say, along the way, you've also given us a ton of feedback that we'll be using to make New World even better. We want New World's launch to be a smooth and fun experience for all players, and that means some improvements based on what you encountered during the closed beta. I think it's so funny. I think in last week's episode, Big Papa, you even asked me. You were like,
I did. I was going to bring that up.
Do you think they're going to postpone it? I was like, no. No way. We would not postpone it.
I had my suspicion, and that's why I asked you. We didn't really. We kind of glossed over it, and you said no, and then we changed topics real quick to another question you had. But I had a suspicion only because I'd heard some loud criticisms from famous streamers. I don't remember what the exact criticisms were necessarily, but I thought, well, they were. I do know that, like, for example, Asmongold himself was saying, like, this is not release ready. He said that in some stream or video. So I was suspicious, and or I had my doubts that they would release on their date. They might change it just because of the loud criticisms that were being voiced. But it's hard to predict these things. They've done it a couple times. My opinion overall is, if it's going to be for the betterment of the game, right? If it's going to, if they're trying to improve some more things, so on release it's even better than it could have been had they released it sooner, then I'm all for it, right? I'd rather them delay it to improve some of the things they need to improve than rush it towards a release date that they scheduled. But I will say this, it is annoying to have these set expectations and and then pull back, right? And every time they say the same thing, right? It's like, hey, this was a hard decision for us. Well, was it? This is the third time you've done it. So
Right.
maybe the answer is, hey, just set a date that's more reasonable or more realistic.
For you and your team, yeah,
for you and your team, and maybe they thought it was. It's true. You could run into all sorts of things during a beta and alpha, and I get it. So I'm not going to come down hard on them. Like I said, I'd rather them do this than rush it. But I can understand why some people in the community might be annoyed by this at the same time. So,
and I think the greater community echoes that same sentiment, right? Like there's that frustration that it got postponed, but an overall understanding that like we'd rather have a finished game than a one that's not ready. And we all played the beta a real healthy amount, and we even talked about it on this podcast. We talked about the ghost trees or there were a number of things that we just kind of cracked up about because we thought it was just silly beta stuff. But beta is something where you want to get out like those sneaky bugs that you need like 150,000 people playing your game so that one person or that 20 people encounter the bug at the same time that they report it. Not the major like issues where you've got 50, 60 people standing around one boss because it's not respawning fast enough and nobody's getting credit for the kill and they're all just trying to move on with the main storyline. So there are definitely things that needed to be fixed.
Yeah.
I'm happy that they're doing that. I can wait. I'm of the same sentiment. I think we're all in agreement there. So
yeah, I agree.
No, I'd rather them get it more polished. That's totally fine. What I am worried about, and I know that other people in the community have expressed the sentiment, is they don't want people like Asmongold or other Twitch streamers. While they are loud and they do have a following, but they don't want Amazon to make decisions solely based on that feedback. Most of the feedback I've seen on New World has been positive. And that's not saying there's not shortcomings, but I feel like some of those streamers were maybe a little overly critical, or maybe the community at large disagrees with some of the viewpoints some of these streamers have, and I know at least I saw at least one post on Reddit about pleading with Amazon, don't just listen to these streamers on feedback. Take the community at large, because what's loud isn't necessarily always what's popular within some of these gaming communities.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that, criticism's not valid. Okay, I'm not trying to dismiss legitimate criticism or problems with the game. But I hope they're not going to make fundamental changes based off what one or two people think about the game and more of what the overall feedback is going to be.
I absolutely agree with that. And honestly, the overall experience for me, and I think for most of the people we played with, was positive. So I agree with that.
It really
sentiment.
was.
I thought they did a really good job for it. And there was two major bugs that really weren't a huge deal. One maybe more so than another. But overall it was positive. And I think this might be the best move for them anyway, just because, give people a little, I'm going to be much more ready to play, I think in September than maybe August, just the excitement of the anticipation of playing again, I'll be sitting and stewing a little bit more thinking about it.
Now I heard that there is a rumored potential second closed beta that might go on between now and then.
I also heard that rumor. So
we'll have to wait and see. If they do a second closed beta, I hope that they would give us all max level characters that we could play through endgame content.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Because
great idea.
I made it to the mid-20s, I think, before I had to stop playing. And I didn't even get to do one of the dungeons. I didn't get to do any of the PvP, like instance PvP content. And so I think they do need to test that area of the game a bit more.
Yeah.
Because Outpost Rush is only a max level thing. How many people hit max level during the beta? Not very many. I'd imagine the number of Outpost Rush games they actually had was very low.
Invasions were also incredibly difficult because they couldn't get enough people to field enough level 60s to take care of invasions, because invasions are really difficult if you can't field 50, 60 level people. So I think there was only a few times that people actually won against invasions, which I actually kind of like. I like that invasions are very difficult. They should be difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
But okay, so question for you then. With this extended time, what is the one thing you're hoping for between now and release that either gets implemented into the game or taken out of the game?
I honestly am hoping for a new weapon. I don't know if that's realistic, but we'll have to see. I'd love to see another weapon on launch. Not that there's not enough variety. I think they're a lot of fun to play around with, and theorycraft, and kind of trying to try out new builds and new things.
That would be a worthwhile reward for waiting an extra month.
I absolutely would agree. If they threw in another weapon, I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be my wish, I guess. My hope.
Man, just fix the company crap that we talked about last episode.
Yes.
And just fix in the episode before. I can't remember, but give us the
permissions.
Give us the ability to adjust permissions and name our ranks and add ranks and take away ranks and
give us a guild bank.
Give us a guild bank. Thank you. That was the last thing I was going to say. Give us that. That's huge.
A localized guild bank. It's only in that town. You don't share another. Like, come on. Or a mailing system. If you can't give us a bank, give us a mailing system.
A mailing system would be good. Oh man, yeah, no, that's what I'm looking for, some improvement there, because if this is going to be a player-driven economy, right, and they have localized markets, which is an awesome idea. There needs to be a good way, an easy way to transfer goods between, and services, right? So
just that work together as a team.
Yes, it's an MMO, so they have a good base here, a good foundation. Improve those quality of life things so we can really maximize the playability and of the economy, and that part of the game.
Yeah. I was gonna say, the company one definitely trumps what I was gonna say, but I was gonna say get rid of that stupid spectral tiger from the cash shop.
Okay, everybody, every single person hates that thing. I've seen like hundreds of posts about it.
So yeah. I know I'm amongst the majority. I understand that, but man, if I could pick, that would be the one thing. Because I before it became a real big issue, as soon as people started buying homes and sticking that thing on their porch, I was like, that's. It's just so out of place.
I read some people were like going into an enemy faction city, buying the house, and then just displaying it there to make the town more ugly since they didn't own it. So but yeah, I agree. It's pretty atrocious and completely out of place within that game. Maybe it was just kind of a fun thing they did put in the beta, and they were never planning to release it. I don't know. Hopefully, it's not in release though.
Yeah, I agree. I did want to say, though, and this is off topic, but just to add to the conversation, they gave everybody who played in the closed beta some extra or like some of the currency that you could spend inside the cash shop. And there was like dyes and an armor set and stuff like that, some different company logos. Honestly, I was totally fine with what they had in there to save that stupid pet. Other than that, though, everything else, I was like, this is a fine cash shop. I don't care that this is or is not in the game.
I didn't even look at it. I didn't touch that cash shop.
Well, I mean, it was very
pretty bare bones.
It was limited, so like as long as there's no XP boost at launch or anywhere close to launch, I don't really care if people want to pay for cosmetics. So
if there is an XP boost, it's in my opinion, it would have to be saved until the first expansion or
at a minimum
major content drop where there needs to be a catch-up mechanic to get caught up to the current content. Like, that's the only reason I can imagine you need that. But
even then, I still don't like the idea of the XP boost. We'll see how the cash shop turns out, but if it's just cosmetics, whatever, people can spend their money on cosmetics. I think $40 for the game is a steal, honestly, and no subscription.
Totally. I agree.
I think it's definitely worth the $40
for an MMO. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
The other news that we have is just kind of some milestones that the beta has hit as we wait for the new release. They had, I think, over 221,000 followers They had 728,000 viewers at a peak time on Twitch. Number 2 in the wish list on Steam, and number 31 in the top sellers right now. It was number 1 and number 2 for the past 2 weeks because of the pre-order bonuses. So the game is certainly performing well. I even saw, man, you can't please everyone. I've even seen posts where people are being like, I'm getting a refund because you delayed the game again. It's like, dude, just...
why are you?
You
I
do you.
understand, yeah, but like, I do want another situation like Cyberpunk when they release the game and it's not ready. I'd rather than wait for the release of the game. I understand.
Exactly. I agree.
Whatever.
It's one more month. There's so many games on the market right now you can play it to fill your time. Well, I'm talking
I don't know about
indie
that,
games.
Okay,
Steam
yeah,
games. Just not MMOs, but there's lots of things you can do.
I think we're actually in a bit of lull in terms of games being released right now, and
Releases.
New World was gonna fill that.
Well,
that void.
Like Slacker, wasn't it Slacker that said the other day? It's like, or posted a meme of like looking at new games and then like looking at your
that was
library
my brother. Yeah,
seeing like all the games you still haven't played in your Steam library.
That's exactly what I've been doing. I've been going through and finishing Steam games that I either started playing or I didn't play before that I bought on a sale. I've actually finished 3 games this week alone. So
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I 2 of them, no, all 3 of them I had already started, and it had been.
Oh, that doesn't count.
Yeah, no, not from start to finish, but
nice.
I finally wrapped them up. So
it's just one more month. That's all I'm saying. It's like
sure.
Anyway, I agree.
You're gonna be okay. I do feel bad for the people who like booked vacation time and things like that already.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
they may or may or not refunded type of thing, and that does suck.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, all right, let's talk about.
It does suck. No, I was just gonna say, like, I'll just reiterate, it does suck because they've done. This is the 3rd time, right? Am I right? This is the 3rd time they've done this.
I think this is the 3rd time. Yeah.
Anyway, it does suck. So I agree, it sucks, but I think overall it's better than rushing something that they, I don't know. Yeah. Overall, it was a good experience for me, so I wouldn't have minded if they released it when they said they were going to, but.
Be real great if we just see them say like, hey, thanks for being patient. Here's the new weapons that we're going to be releasing, new monster models that will be in the game. You know what I mean? It'd be really great if we saw that. But if we didn't, and it was just like a real clean game at launch, I'm good with that too, if I'm being honest. So. All right, so let's talk about our feature review. We wanted to talk about, and so we picked this topic before we heard the news, but I want to talk about what your go-to strategies are. Changes notwithstanding. So let's pretend that the game gets launched tomorrow and it has none of the bugs or anything like that in the system. So that being said, what are some of the strategies that you guys are hoping to employ on release? Because playing in the closed beta, we kind of got I thought it was real great because we got a chance to experience a lot of the game for the first time without consequence. There were opportunities. There's, like, for example, one of my strategies I'll be utilizing was a way to make money that's only going to work at the beginning of the game. It's not going to work later in the game. So it's good that I wanted to clarify some of these, or get a chance to get the game launched again and make some of these other decisions. And in fact, there's a number of decisions that's really great that we get to make again because we've played in the closed beta. And with all you listeners, hopefully you can share in some of that wisdom, and it'll make your gameplay process even better. So who wants to go first? Tips or tricks that you have, or release strategies for release? So
one thing I'm gonna really improve on and change is focusing more on crafting. I mean, I knew it was important going into the beta, but I seriously neglected some of it, and I think I didn't realize how much experience crafting actually gives you. I mean, gathering stuff and then just generating those raw materials into more usable material, refining it. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It actually gives you a decent chunk of experience just from doing that. leveling up crafting and keeping it up to date. Not only that, is that going to help boost your experience, but it's going to give you a lot of stuff you can sell, which is going to make you a lot of money. I think making money early game is going to be vital, especially if you want to control a territory, right?
And buy a house and all those kind of things that require bigger dollars.
Absolutely. So my biggest focus is while I was out, I mean, I think I skinned most of the stuff I killed, but I didn't log a lot. I didn't gather. I didn't mine a lot initially, and those are things I'm going to spend a lot more time doing because they're probably not as efficient as just straight leveling or questing, but they are still going to be beneficial towards that, and they're going to make a lot more money and keep me up to date. So when we get to the end game, I can already be ready to craft some of this other end game stuff. So I don't know. That's going to be my big shift, at least. I just ran around most of the time in the beta killing stuff because that was fun. So
it was fun. I actually agree. One of the things I feel like I missed on that same thread was I didn't understand how important the consumable professions were. Like, I went to town on engineering, leatherworking, the whole, to make my bows and spears and stuff. And then once I kind of out-leveled the common potion, I was like, whoops, should have been. So I think when I go back, I think I'm totally going to work on alchemy I'm making some of those consumables that are just so important at the beginning of the game. When I was doing fights, like when I would get into a PvP fight, I felt like the majority of the reason why I won or lost was whether or not I ran out of consumables. I would have exchanges with somebody else, bam, 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 and if he got the better of me, I could back off for a bit, chug a potion, eat some food, get back into the fight, and I'm like, we're still going at it. But as soon as I'm out of consumables, I'm done.
Yeah, that was.
And so
the
I'm
case.
like, that's so important. I gotta make sure I'm up in my game with both cooking and alchemy.
Well, that was the case when the story I shared a couple episodes ago with me and Josh fighting that guy. I mean, we fought him for at least 20 minutes. It was 20 to 30 minutes. And one fight, and he just had an endless supply of potions so he could keep healing up.
Yeah.
And, he was able to kite us for a long time. But it was... so potions are very important. Having those consumables, the cooldown is surprisingly short for when you can drink them again. I don't remember the exact.
It's like 30
cooldown.
Seconds, I think.
Yeah, it was like around 30 seconds, but 30 seconds goes by really fast in this kind of
Yeah, I think in WoW it was 2 minutes.
Not only that, I mean, you can spend a lot of that time dodging, running away.
Exactly.
Yes.
Especially if it's melee combat, right?
Exactly. With this kind of combat, it goes by fast when you're like, oh, I can already drink again. Here we go. As for me, I have two ideas for what I want to do as far as tips and tricks go for the launch. One is make sure try to ensure that our company gets 100K as fast as possible, so we can purchase a territory. Because based on what I've seen, it seems that the benefits of it's even though you're dropping 100K and you could lose it, right? If you can keep a hold of that territory and your company's good at that, you could potentially make a good amount of money really quick from just controlling that territory, right? Like Slacker, I'm
almost thinking for launch we should build a spreadsheet and have an accounting system where because it's really kind of scary giving the guild master up to 100,000 K, but we what if we started a spreadsheet and we're like, all right, so and so donated 10,000, so and so donated 1,000, and we make the promise that if we don't buy it, we give it back, or if we do buy it, as soon as we've reaped the rewards, we give the money back to everybody.
Sure, you could create a ledger. Let's just get a company accountant, okay, to handle all this.
So if you want to do our accounting and you're listening to this podcast, that sounds
come let us.
We'll pay you with in-game money, for every.
We'll buy you one of those rainbow tigers. Okay?
That's right.
Well, so that's another thing. I didn't see like some sort of log or ledger there for. But I
No,
did
there
see when
wasn't.
people donated, there was a, I knew a couple people were donating. We actually some of us pulled our money together to try to sign up for war, and we did, but then that money was refunded when we ended up not being chosen, so that was kind of cool.
Right.
And then I was able to distribute that back or keep it in the company.
Oh, and there was a ledger for you
money.
to see who donated what?
No, not that I saw it. I didn't really look hard for that.
Okay,
Once I
okay.
realized I couldn't change the permissions of rankings, I was like, well, I'm not seeing any log or anything either for that. Maybe there is one and I missed it. But you could use that if that existed. But getting 100K as fast as possible as a company and investing in a territory, I think is a good idea, because taking it through conflict is a long process, and
It's a lot tougher than it looks.
You may or may not become the Vanguard either. So
Yeah.
and then you're staking it all in the one battle, win or lose. And if you do usurp a company, well, great. They lost 100K potentially, but if you're able to hold on to that territory for a little while, it looks like the costs of maintaining the territory versus the actual money income you're generating from people using your workshops and whatnot, it's pretty good. It didn't look like, it looked like pretty good profit.
Yeah.
So
No, you're right. I mean, and the taxes for the players were small. I mean, I think I could craft 100+ things for under a gold. And so that's small for the player, but you got thousands of players doing that, and that money's going to the company. It's going to add up really quickly, especially over a few days, and multiple different players and multiple different crafting types and all that stuff. It adds up quick. So I agree. I think getting that company established, especially if you can do it in one of those starting zones, right?
yes, yeah,
Where
Yeah,
there's tons
well, I was
of
just going to
players.
say, that goes double for it being in the early game, because a lot of people were picking what town they were leveling in based on which faction had controlled it.
yeah,
So if you can get in there early and you can, raise the funds and buy the property and you're marauders, you're going to attract a ton more marauders to come not only defend it, but be there. If you go to if you take over a syndicate territory and you're a marauder, not only do you have to take it over, but you now also have to uproot all the other syndicate people who are still living there from when they were like, I'm setting this up as my home base.
yeah.
Now, I think that some of that changes when you get a little higher in level and people start moving on to Cutlass Keys or, Evan Scale Reach to the different zones. But certainly in the in the early game, those territories, Windsward, Everfall, they were, once they had been taken, there was a lot of people there.
Yeah. Well, and keep this in mind, you can only buy it once. After that, it has to be taken through conflict as far as we're aware, unless they change that. So being able to just buy it with money, if you can save up for it quickly and get your guys doing, contributing, that's not a bad purchase. And you start with that control. And as you level up, it's much easier to gain money. Like if you had 100 guys, and if you filled out your entire company roster and everyone contributed 1,000, that's not hard at all. I mean, I had 1,000 easily by the time I was like level 10 or something. Maybe a little higher, give or take a few levels, but it's not hard. And I was easily holding on to 6K at a time, at level 25, so it's, if you can do that as fast as you can, I think that's a huge advantage. And then you don't have to worry about undermining and then hopefully getting the Vanguard to take over a territory. So,
right. Yeah. Well, and the other advantage is you also get to participate. You're pretty much guaranteed to participate in the war, right? If you're part of that company, they're probably going to choose people from the company first to participate in the war.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were sad because they didn't. They played the full 2-week beta and didn't get to participate in a single war just because they were never selected or their company was never directly involved with the war, and they might have been on the backup, but not chosen to participate. So that's going to be important, and honestly, I think maybe Amazon needs to take a look at how that war system works, because there are going to be frustrated people who, if they can't participate in a war because their company's maybe not active enough, or they want a more solo experience, and they do want to participate in these things sometimes, but they just don't want to be in a company or all the time or something. I get that. So we'll see how it plays out.
That's
But
hard though. That's a
I
hard.
agree. It
I
is.
mean, that's a hard ask because
Yeah, it is.
you're talking about a big impact on the game these wars are making, and
Yeah.
and there's so many players and only 50 people per team can get in on that war. I mean, I don't want to see wars all the time, but what we saw in beta, I will say this, I thought it was a good amount. We were seeing every couple days we'd see a territory fall into conflict and go into war, and I thought that was a good amount, and that's it.
Made
So
it
the oppor-
meaningful.
It made
Yeah,
it meaningful, and this is the point I guess I'm getting to is like, if you are upset because you're not getting in a war, find a better company. Find a company that's more active in the world you're in, because it's an MMO. It's about that group play, and I don't want them to just to push war, have more opportunities for wars just because not everyone's getting a chance,
Well,
so that, there's a balance.
I agree, but like I know some people kind of want their tight knit company, of group 5-10 friends, right?
Yeah.
They don't want necessarily a lot of random people in their company and things like that. I that's also part of MMOs. You see a lot of guilds that are just small, tight knit friends and other MMOs as well, right? And you're right. This has a much bigger impact. But even if you're in an active company of 100 people, only 50 people get selected
Right.
for war. You may still never get selected for one of those big companies. And I don't know. I understand the gravitas of what's happening in these zones, and I do agree the bigger companies who are putting in more should have more say. But there's got to be some way you can still at least get these people to experience that content in one way or another.
Okay,
right?
here's an idea.
Well, you have Outpost Rush too.
You
Well,
do,
there
but
is, but it's different.
It's
Not
different.
quite.
I
It's not.
understand. Yeah,
it's
it is
different.
different.
Yeah.
What if? Okay, here's an idea. And just tell me what you guys think. What if the death in the wars was a little more permanent, and so, or maybe it was a longer cooldown. So so the backups could come in to replace those that died in the war. So it's like if your frontline, if your first 50
Like
That's not a terrible
reserve?
idea.
die off,
Yeah.
the backups take place. So it's like it's not just about going ham, right? It's about being smart, being strategic, and surviving and using your advantages to win the war instead of just going ham and then respawning, right? What if death was permanent and the backups took place, and then when those guys died, then the first round could come back in, I don't
You
know.
have like a pool of reserves, and everyone
Uh-huh.
who's queued in for that war is in this reserve. All right, call up the developers.
Call
them up.
No, I actually really like that idea. I think that's gonna and it'll make you. I think it would make you play a little more smart within the war, right?
Yep.
Where I mean, don't get me wrong, death's obviously a bad penalty. Anytime you're dead in a PvP match, you're not helping your team. But even more so if you have to switch
You have to
strategies because you have to wait, or you have new people coming in, and at the same time though, there's going to be people complaining, I can't fully coordinate between 500 people in my war queue, right? I don't know. I like the idea a lot. I really do. I know there would be backlash on that.
I just
from
wish
big companies who want to control everything, right?
Yeah, I had another idea a while ago that I kind of pitched to you guys. I don't remember if it was on a podcast or not, but I think it would have been cool had these wars taken place over a longer period of time. So instead of just a one-time event for 30 minutes, you have during the week, you have every other day there's a battle for this war. And so every time, one of those battles is when, won, you have so much more the advantage, or you're that much more closer to winning the war, right? Or successfully defending. So it would have been cool if there were different battle events that were taking place, and it was actually taking place in the outposts in the actual map, or at the fort in the actual map, and it it felt realistic, to the territory you were fighting in. Anyway, that would have been cool.
So
Maybe
what
that would
if-
give more opportunities for players to play.
Since we're just spitballing here, let me add to that. And since we're way off topic, okay, all right. So what if the wars were much more like they were in medieval times, where there was a long period of sieging the castle beforehand.
Right.
So you would spend maybe the week before trying to, if you were defending, you would try to run supplies into the fort. If you were attacking, you're trying to kill supply chains. You're trying to break the walls. And the more effort that you have in this war, which is like a daily thing, and you do this huge sieging phase before you have the actual assaulting phase, which only lasts, that's your 30-minute battlefield. But then you have this long feud that happens. I think that's great.
I agree.
Let's do it.
Because then you could say, hey, we need more people to help break up supply chains during this week. Like we're not fielding enough people. Sign up if you want to come run and it's fun. And so maybe that part is just fun and you don't have to organize as much. You're just sending guys out to go break up supply chains and kill enemies. But then as it gets closer to
you feel a part of the war, the part of the war effort.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that's something they could definitely be a little more involved with the wars themselves and have more to it, because I do agree a 30-minute battle suddenly decides whether or not you keep or lose this territory. But I also think I think that's what the PvP missions are kind of supposed to be, right? Where you're breaking down the area initially, right? And you're eliminating the enemy faction players beforehand, before you can even go to war.
Yeah, but those PvP missions are not hitting the mark.
That's another topic.
I know. I'm playing devil's advocate, right? I agree. I don't think they're quite hitting the mark. They're fun, and they are. They give a lot more than the PvE missions, those PvP missions, but I agree there's more that they could do to build up the war.
So much more.
Allow more people to participate more within a war type scenario. So I don't think I would like it if it lasted like a full week, maybe 3 or 4 days. Because
fair enough. I'm just talking multiple sessions throughout, across a couple days. Yeah.
Or multiple different stages of taking
the war.
Of the war, right? I think that could work quite well, whereas right now it's you do the PvP missions till it's in conflict, and then in 2 days you do this 30-minute battle, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. This will prove overall though, it's people who have done the wars have said they've been really fun, and the whole idea of just being able to take over a territory and control and maintain parts of that territory is still just an awesome idea in general.
Yeah. It is. So, it is.
We do need to discuss PvP missions though at some episode, because that I think that's been one of the disappointments I've had in this in the beta.
Well, tell you what, we got plenty of time, and we got 4 more episodes that we got to fill before release comes out.
Right.
So get ready for some good deep dives on topics nobody cares about. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I've got a couple. Getting back on topic, a couple of my strategies here. My first one is when you're a new player and you're just starting out, and you want to start working on crafting armor, or you want to look for iron. When you first start, iron is very tricky to find because you can't track it. You have to be level 25 to track it. So my suggestion is you go out there and you just smash boulders for half an hour, and it'll level up your mining, and very quickly you'll hit level 25 and suddenly you'll be able to find iron. So one of the first things I'm going to do when I get to the first town, so after you get off the beach, there's this tutorial, in case you're not aware, there's this tutorial section where you're on a beachhead. And then once you move to your first town, you kind of exited the tutorial area. So once I get to my first town, wherever that is going to be, I'm immediately going to level up my mining to 25, because just finding the iron in the early game was so freaking profitable, it's not even funny. And some of the iron is a little trickier to find. Now, the ones inside the caves that people are regularly running to, or along the paths, the ones that you casually walk upon, everyone else is casually walking upon those iron nodes as well. So you want to get that tracking turned on as fast as possible so you can start catching those nodes really quickly. And whether you're selling them or you're going to use that for craft is up to you. But just smash boulders until you hit 25 and turn that tracking on.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point too, because don't forget that once you hit a certain level in these gathering professions, tracking will be turned on for you to be able, so you'll see on your little compass bar up at the top of your screen, you'll see where nodes are for a specific resource. And that's super helpful if you're having a hard time finding hemp, Ruko, you gather things and you'll be able to see hemp on your...
I still don't know what it looks like. Well, okay, I looked it up finally, and I went over to the areas it's supposed to be, and I ran around this one farm area for like an hour and never found a single one. So
that's crazy.
You're gonna have to show me in game sometime. where
we
the
promise it exists. Hemp is real.
I bought so much linen off of the auction house from
what?
the market. Just trying to craft more. Towards the end, I tried to craft more and get my crafting up so I could, stay up to date with my armor and craft better armor as I leveled up, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just
I
relying
don't
on random
think
drops.
I crafted any armor, just weapons. I just did engineering.
Both.
And
Yeah.
man, if there was
I only
a
crafted
shared
cartridges.
system, if there was a shared system though, I would have sent all of my gathered materials over to Big Papa and would have solely focused on alchemy. In fact, if they make a guild bank or something of that nature, I will 100% do that. Because I know you're going to go engineering.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to make the stuff that I want to make. I'm going to do the gatherings professions anyway, as much of them as I can.
Yep.
So it would be so easy for me to just, hey, I'm going to pass off all of my, just make it for me and send it back.
I agree.
And I'll make you potions.
You could, I mean,
You can't do that right now, and that frustrates me. We talked about this last episode, but
I mean,
it's not
you can't
convenient
really
to do
right.
it. It's not convenient.
No, it's not.
That's
correct.
Yeah.
Well, you can trade with people, right? You still can
But
do
even
in-person trades.
We talked about that last episode, Ruko. Is like even the trading menu is like so finicky. It was just
It
was
is.
buggy. It was
Yeah.
buggy. That needs to be fixed. But even if it was, let's say it worked perfectly, which it did sometimes for me, it was like I had to click 5 times to trade. It's like that is not efficient, But I don't know.
Well, I know, it's not efficient, but this is why my launch strategy is to go back to crafting, a lot more crafting. I mean, I'm guessing I'm probably going to spend at least a third or more of my time farming and crafting in addition to doing quests, because it is so important, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to spend the time doing it. That's not the big draw of the game for them, so they're going to buy stuff up from the market, which you can sell, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a good money making opportunity, and I don't think it's going to be that detrimental to leveling up overall. So again, crafting, it seems like the way to go. Slacker.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to one last little strategy that I have for launch. And I'm just going to make a comment here that, first of all, I'm glad we're talking about this maybe earlier than we had planned, only because I hope people forget about this strategy, because I don't want other people doing it. But just for our listeners, I found out right away as a musket user how limited cartridges are in the beginning of the game. Sure, you find a couple here and there, but you're shooting a few bullets per battle, per encounter with an enemy, and you're finding only a few bullets every once in a while in chests or in loot. And when I went to the first city and I looked up cartridges to buy, they were so expensive, and some people were buying them. So I had to figure out real quickly how to make cartridges, and it's actually not very easy. You have to be able to go to caves to get saltpeter to make gunpowder, and then with gunpowder you can make cartridges. You also need hemp to make linen. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So one of my strategies early game is to get access to saltpeter, because there was one cave in Everfall that had an abundance of saltpeter, and it was a higher level cave when I first went there. So I had to kite mobs and collect saltpeter, and it was pretty effective. I didn't die at all, but but I had to collect saltpeter, and the earlier you do it, the better, because as people level up, they're going to figure it out too, and then it was much harder to go in and farm an area because I was competing. So getting a ton of saltpeter is huge. Finding the hemp is huge. Trying to get that, and then I'm going to just make a ton of cartridges and sell a bunch as well, and try to dominate the market there for the early game so I can make some money, because potentially I'll make some good money to where I could buy off all the other people that are selling cartridges buy off those and sell them at a higher price. So
I think that's smart, but something that I'm going to do is, because of that exact issue, is I know I want to do spear for my first weapon, and I'm pretty sure I want to do bow. And if I'm going to do bow, I will not focus on using my bow until like the second or third week. And I'm just going to sell all the stuff that requires to make arrows, because I had the same issue. I just want the first 2 weeks, just sell that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So my second one I just wanted to hit real quick is more of an economic one. And one I should preface this with is the fact that as soon as you get off that tutorial beach, you should go to whatever town you want to set up shop at, because they've all kind of got the same in-town quests. So just get to the town as soon as you get off the beach to where you want to go. And each town is going to be ranking up different shops differently. Because remember, if you want to do engineering, for example, say you want to make those cartridges, cartridges you needed a tier 2 crafting station, didn't you?
I don't remember for iron, but for steel, I know it's definitely 3, right? But yeah, I don't.
Okay, let's use that
one.
one. So you want to make tier 3 cartridges. You need a tier 3 crafting station. And not all of those different towns are going to be prioritizing engineering, which is what those cartridges are in. Maybe they're prioritizing armor, their blacksmith, or their smelters, or their woodworking, whatever the case may be. So what you do to make a buttload of cash is you take your supplies that you need that you're going to craft with if you want to, or you can buy them there. Go to the towns that have the tier 3 crafting stations. Craft and build as you need, and then walk them back to the places that do not have a tier 3 crafting station and sell them at that town, and you'll make a significant more amount of money. I was doing that with pickaxes. As soon as I could make steel pickaxes, I was like, well, this place, because both Big Papa and I, we were working out of the same town, and we got really frustrated because they were not prioritizing the engineering crafting table. And so we said, well, we got to go to a different town to get this done. So I went up there, I made one pickaxe for myself, made it out of steel, and I was like, maybe I'll just make a few more and go back and sell them. And they were selling for like 750 a piece. A week later, they were only 75 gold a piece. So literally 10 times in the early game, and this is one of those things that's really only going to work in the early game really, really well. Afterwards, it'll still work well. And as a fact, as a company, we may want to make a decision of being like, hey, we're all going to make like a trip and go up to this one territory, craft or make what we need because we know it's really cheap there, and then bring it down to another spot. In fact, it would be even better, now that I'm just thinking through this, is if we all logged on, all 3 of us went to a different town, we started comparing prices of different products, and says, okay, well, I'll take cartridges to you bring arrows here because they're just selling at different rates, and just make money that way. You can manipulate the market. It's possible. So just think of some of those basic strategies, and you'll be able to buy your first house. You'll be able to get those territories pretty easily. You want to do something. Don't just passively think that you're going to do, go out, kill stuff, and do quests, and think you're going to have enough money for everything that you want in the game. Yeah, this is a player-driven economy. Yep. There's no vendor. You can't just vendor all the junk you get off of monsters.
Crafting is huge in this game. It's huge.
So take advantage of that. Play that part of the game, and you'll be better for it.
Okay, one last thing here, because we've given a lot of economic market advice. I do have one more thing. It takes a long time to level up weapons. It's surprisingly long. Figure out what you want to commit to early and stick with it. Because I only ever played musket and rapier. And, I didn't play much of the last week of beta, but with the time I played, I was only able to get up to just over the 12 level hump to get.
That's about as high as we got.
Anyway, that's just one little piece of advice. If you really figure out early what you want to stick with, so you can maximize the experience on those weapons and get as high as possible, as soon as possible with them, because it does help. Unlocking those passives are huge. Sometimes they're game changing for the weapon. That was the case with rapier. There was one in particular that was game changing for me, but it took a while to get there.
So what we'll probably do is we'll have to do a build, another build episode, but kind of like do builds 2.0 sometime in August.
Oh, good
and just
call.
see, after playing, seeing like, hey, have our thoughts and opinions on these different builds changed And honestly, I need to, because when I was playing the game, I totally just want to echo what Big Papa was saying absolutely do that, because when you get into the game, you're going to get kind of married to some different abilities that may not synergize very well with your play overall. So I needed to stop playing and take a step back and go back to my build and be like, okay, what was my strategy with my build again? Because I really started liking this specific spear ability. And I realized that while it was a really fun ability to use, it actually wasn't very cohesive to my overall plan for the long game. And the longer you wait, the more that's going to cost to respec. So I think it'd be worth having another dive.
It is, and you got to remember, like once you start getting to those higher levels, anyway, if you're not liking your weapon, it won't be too bad to re-level or level up a new weapon, right? Because the experience gains are based off the mobs you're killing, and you should be able to level up a new one later on if you're just not having a fun time with it. But yeah, I agree. Getting those weapon perks early and sticking with one thing instead of swapping around a lot is going to be much more beneficial to you in terms of efficiency and leveling fast than if you are just playing whatever, right? You get a new weapon,
Right.
it's higher item level or whatever, and you're going to just swap and play with it for a bit.
All right, so let's move on to our next topic for this episode. And this is one we certainly want to talk about just briefly, as this comes from our little segment, the world around Aeternum, and talking about the industry and the MMO world as a whole. Things have been pretty intense over at Blizzard the past few weeks, as they've had recent allegations come across in lawsuits and various other, leadership changes having happened. And I think where we stand, obviously, we believe in, everyone being treated well. I think we were talking before the podcast a little bit about this and how much we despise kind of that bro culture and how damaging it can be. But particularly, we also wanted to talk about how this affects a game and its development, because you're working in a situation where you need to be creative and you need to have the space to think outside the box and come up with a cool idea and then implement it and find out that didn't really quite work. So you want to try something else. And it tends that sometimes you get nasty cultures, or sometimes you kind of get that corporate-y overtones, and it starts to spoil that creative process. And I think that that's something that we'll have to keep our eyes on New World, not because they've had anything like that or have any evidence of it, but certainly they're not an indie developer. And some of my favorite games are actually indie games because they work on that premise that they have all that creative freedom without having to fight against a corporate culture or fight against a bro culture or fight against these other really gross stuff that you can find, especially inside the game development industry. So with this game that we love so much, I hope that we see a continual push forward to empowering the creative people and making sure that they have the environment and the time that they need to make really compelling, engaging games. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. No, and Blizzard has lost its way. 100%. Blizzard started off as a small indie company. All jokes aside, sometimes we joke. My guild jokes about Blizzard being a small indie company based on the just sheer number of bugs and bad content that they put out. Because sometimes a lot of small indie games don't work out or aren't that great, and things like that. Because they're new, right? They're still learning how to do games. That's not indicative of all indie games. Obviously, a lot of indie games are phenomenal. But Blizzard started off this way, and they have just gone off the path. Really, honestly, since they merged with Activision, I think it's just gone downhill. And that was 12, 13 years ago, something like that, a really long time ago. Probably about the time the Wrath of the Lich King expansion released, it's been downhill. And there's been good stuff coming out of it too, but you can see that influence of merging with this big company they're breathing down their necks. They want more money. They want more profits. They don't care about the players. And even recently, I know Blizzard has said they don't care about subscription numbers. They're looking to farm the people who are left for as much money as they can get, essentially,
Oof.
right?
Oof.
That like the subscription numbers have gone down over the last 4 years, but their profits have gone up because of all this new in-game the new in-game shop stuff, and they haven't lowered their character services things. Like, I think transferring realms is still like $25. It takes Blizzard,
Crazy.
yeah, outrageous,
Ugh.
absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
Considering they probably just hit a button on their side and it does it, right? I you've seen the writing on the wall. A lot of the developers and big head honchos have been leaving Blizzard for a long time, and I gotta say, I'm sure some of these sexual allegations and seeing the bro culture from within Blizzard is probably part of the reason for that. They don't want to be a part of it.
Yes.
It's not fun, and it's gonna stint growth within the company, natural creative growth and good ideas, right? When you don't have I guess for lack of a better word, diversity within the company, and you're not listening to other people's ideas, you're just telling them what to do, you're gonna end up with this bad bro culture. And
Well, and I think that's just the thing, is it's kind of this two-pronged illness, where one of it was certainly getting owned by a major corporation who shifted the goals from being player-driven experiences to being profit-driven experiences.
Yep.
And, even with the company that I work for now, we're very focused on staying true to the customers. And that's a big, we talk a lot about what our customer experience is, and we try really hard to focus on that. And I really like the company that I work for because it does that. But when you move from being an indie developer to suddenly having people saying like, okay, you don't know how to do business, so we're going to teach you how to do business. And it ends up, what happened, I think, at Blizzard, steamrolling the system. Not teaching, but steamrolling. And then the indie developers who were there beforehand suddenly get inflated egos, because the names that are coming out on these allegations, we're not talking about like a couple of guys in a back room. We're talking about some of the bigwigs at Blizzard that I've been a fan of since I was younger, making some great games. Suddenly, they just have power's gone to their head or whatever it is, and it's just destroyed such a beautiful thing that used to exist. And my heart really goes out for the people who played Warcraft 3 and went to school and went to college and said, someday I'm going to work for Blizzard. And they try their absolute hardest, and they finally land their dream job just to be subject to this crap. That sucks so much, especially in an industry that's so heavily competitive that executives can easily say, if you don't like the environment, dude, just leave, because I can replace you no problem, because everybody wants this job. That to me is the most gut-wrenching part. Like, that sucks. That really sucks for all these people who work so hard to get there just to have this fantasy and this dream of it shoved down their face.
And I'm
Anyway.
hoping one of the big lessons Blizzard takes away from this is that people don't want to work for them anymore, right? I read a post, I think just this morning, they've got 20 new positions open now, or something like that, right? I'm sure a lot of it is as a result of people leaving. People have been hearing bad things about Blizzard internally, and you see some of the big names dropping off out of Blizzard for a long time. Hopefully you're not wanting to work there as much anymore. It sounds like a terrible place to work from these allegations. It sounds like it's been that way for a long time. And based on what they're doing with, I know they're hiring an union-busting law firm to assist with some of the potential unionization. I mean, that sounds awful. I don't want to work there. Yeah, maybe there was a time in my life that had been great to work for Blizzard. But not anymore. You couldn't pay me all the money in the world to go work for them and be miserable every day at my job.
I was just gonna say, I think you guys have kind of hit it all on the nose. I don't think I have much to say. It's just sad seeing this company screw up time and time again. I mean, everything I hear about Blizzard anymore is typically bad news. I think Shadowlands was kind of a decent launch from what I've heard, but
that's fine.
It's just one thing after another. What was it, a couple years ago, the Hong Kong thing? and that was kind of a mess. And
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
The
Yeah,
Blitzchung Hearthstone thing,
Exactly.
right?
when they
Yep.
banned him. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It's just one bad thing after
Crazy.
another, and it's too bad. It's I think it
You need
heavily.
people who are passionate about the game.
Well, yeah. Hey, the good news is if you want to lose players but make more profit, put up an in-game store. You know, hey, there's way Blizzard can show you how to do that. You know, they figured it out. So I don't. It's just frustrating. You know, I think it has to do, and you guys have touched on this a lot, but I do think it mostly has to do with that corporate environment and caring more about profits than players. I think that hit it right on the nose.
You get people who are removed from the process. Executives, especially in corporate environments, and I think this isn't really our topic, but especially in corporate environments, start to lose focus of what it's like to be on the floor, to be in the sales field, to be a developer. You get this disconnect. And I think it's important that they retain that. And I think they've lost it at Blizzard. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, Slacker, this is a podcast about New World, not about Blizzard. But I think the lessons that New World learns from this are really important because it's already a corporate environment. Yeah, and they have been allowed to postpone their game now 3 times. And I think that's actually good news for us who are hoping that this game doesn't become a corporate shell of Amazon.
That's a good point. I agree with that. And I was just going to say, keep in mind, profit's important, right? You need to make money to keep developing the game, right? But when you sacrifice the focus on the players, right, and your relationship with the players for more profit, that's when things start going downhill, in my opinion. But I just wanted to make that side comment.
Yeah.
I think it's good news. I mean, you look at the game a year ago, what we knew about the game from a year ago, and you look at it today, that was all based on player feedback. And they were willing to delay the game a full year to implement and try out some of these better things, better systems within the game. Now, I've heard there's still some things people didn't like about some of the changes they've made, but overall it seems like they are moving in the right direction, taking player feedback, and then even with this latest delay of the game, they're planning to make changes based on what people have said. That's what you need to do. I don't want people at Amazon to be making this game because they feel like it's a good job and they're getting paid a lot of money. I want them to be making it because they care about the game, and I don't see that in a company like Blizzard.
And they play
anymore.
the game.
Yeah, and they play the game.
There's no way the executives over at Blizzard are playing World of Warcraft.
Some of the head honchos actually do. I do know that. Like Ion Hazukosis, he's the lead encounter designer. He's one of the head people. He does play the game, and some of these head people do play the game. But I don't think a lot of the lower staff do or care. I'm sure they're just there to be code monkeys and put out as much code and bug fixes as possible. And they're not passionate about the game. They don't care. It's a job to them.
Yeah.
And and when it's just a job to you, you develop these really toxic cultures where you're just caring about an outside social life rather than within the culture within the company.
Well, and the responsibility lies on the leadership, right? Specifically, right? Because you can't fault someone for showing up day to day, a developer, and their priority is it's a job for them, right? It's their income, their support for their family. But the leadership, especially that are pushing these, the game and trying to create this environment of, hey, this is our game, this is our baby, right? This is, it's the responsibility falls on them ultimately to create that kind of environment and love for the game internally. So yeah, I agree with you.
That's a really good point. I really like that. And I think that here's the silver lining. I mean, this is a crummy issue that really sucks as we see this great behemoth and this titan of the industry collapse in on itself, is that this actually paves the road for other developers and other games like New World. Yeah. As World of Warcraft falls, people are saying, all right, what else is there? Well, what else can we sink our teeth into? What else has got something real and tangible that we can hold on to? So I think that there is a lot of lessons. I know that when Final Fantasy, it had a horrid, absolutely terrible launch. When they finally got new creative directors who came in on it, they went to the team and said, hey, you know what your homework is? You go home and you play World of Warcraft. You learn from that game and you learn from their experiences. We make a better game.
Yeah.
Well, and they have. And that's what I hope happens with New World, that we learn from these lessons. We take the opportunities to say, hey, we're listening to our players. We care about our players. So you can also get that here. Aside from a great game, you can also get a development team that actually cares and celebrates its players instead of despising them and mocking them at BlizzCons.
Right. Well, and Amazon is not Amazon Games specifically is not a stranger to failure. I've already had one what they call that big game canceled. They've had another one that was
and they
released.
Had two?
Oh well, yes. So I'm getting to that. They actually released the second one, right?
Crucible,
and
right?
Crucible,
Yeah.
and it's completely shut down now because they openly admitted we have no way, we don't know how to fix the problems with this game, and we don't see a way to sustain it in the future. So a lot of companies sort of said, well, we're just going to keep going, and again, we're going to milk all the people who are still playing the game for everything they're worth before we shut it down.
Like Anthem?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah, Anthem. Well, and like Blizzard is currently doing now.
Yeah.
No, they shut it down. They're like, we're not gonna keep going with this game that's not good, and we can't fix the problems. So I hope they've learned from those experiences, and I hope they continue to are willing to take big steps to fix problems within.
That's
the
a
game.
really good point. Honestly, pointing out that they've failed twice already, and they've accepted that failure and moved on from it, and are still trying. You could argue that's a really good sign for the company. You know, I agree.
I'm sure a lot of people see it as a really bad sign that they failed twice already.
Right. That's the natural inclination.
It does
right?
cut both ways, though.
Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point,
like
right? From a different perspective, you could argue it's a good sign. They're not focused on trying to milk the players, right, for all they've got. They're trying to make a good game, and if it fails, it fails. You know.
And I'm sure they're completely different teams from the other ones, but I think the studio as a whole is showing they're willing to make drastic steps to either fix something or at least not make the game like hate the players to the point where they just want to suck the money out of them, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of hope that they're going to continue to listen to player feedback in the future. I really hope that the work environment at Amazon, at least for everywhere, honestly, is not good. Or, sorry, that it is good, and that it's not this toxic bro culture, and it's not full of sexual harassment like these allegations that are being made against Blizzard. Because, you know, when you have an environment like that, you're just not going to make a good product.
Yeah.
Right. All right, well, let's end this episode on a fun note. Let's talk about our opinion segment. We'll be brief on it because I don't know how long we actually needed to go into this, but there's a much needed. No, sorry. Let me rephrase that. There is a much requested feature inside New World that we'd be amiss if we didn't talk about it. And there's actually a few of these. And maybe we'll do a whole series on these. But the first one is let's talk about travel inside New World. And to start off, let's understand what the current traveling system is. The way you get around, number one, is you walk. You tie your shoes, you go out the door, and you walk from town to town, from quest to quest. There is, in place, a fast travel system. You can travel to your set inn, kind of like a Hearthstone. It's free to do so, and you can do it once an hour. There's also traveling to other fast travel points, which are other inns that you've been to in other towns, or even discoverable markers inside the world. I think there was like one extra, maybe two extra in each zone. And that is not free. It costs a Zoth based on the distance and what you have in your inventory, but there's no cooldown. And finally, you can travel to your home wherever you've built homes for free. Now, you could build homes in every city and you could travel about there. And I think those also have a 1 hour cooldown.
Clarification real quick. You set your inn, so there's only one inn you could teleport to at any given
Correct.
time. Okay.
For free.
Yeah, for free.
But you can fast travel to other visited towns with a cost.
With the Azoth cost. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
I'm with you now.
Yes, but not for free.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So a heavily requested feature are mounts, saying that I want to get from A to B faster, and to do so, I need a mount. I need a horse. I need to gallop across the beautiful plains of Aeternum. Do mounts have a home in New World? Yes or no? And why?
Yes, but not right now. That's gonna be my answer. I think mounts eventually will have a place. I think as it is right now, I wouldn't want a mount, at least not for until like an expansion or something. And the reason for that is I want to feel encouraged to explore the world. Now I understand this can get a little tedious traveling back and forth, but I never felt like I was if I needed a fast travel or wanted to fast travel even, that I didn't have the resources to do it. If I needed to fast travel, I could always do that. I think when you start putting mounts into the game, people start ignoring a huge portion of the world, right? I think a lot of the fun experiences that come are from exploring and from discovering new things. I guess as long as that discovery is meaningful in some way, and mounts will inevitably, cut that down. So I think once people have had time to explore the map and explore the game thoroughly, I think then it's a good time to put mounts in, because at that point players just want to be efficient and get from point A to point B. I understand some people want to do that right now and be efficient for getting from point A to point B, but I think it's better for most player experiences to be able to explore freely and not feel pressure to be super efficient and having a mount and just zooming around through the world without paying attention to it.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right. Now, we've talked about other potential applications for mounts in this podcast, like using them for good transportation and being flagged for PvP while you move goods from A to B on an ox or something like similar to Albion Online system. But Ruko, I think you're 100% right. I think there is a home for mounts in the game, but definitely not in the state of the game as it is right now.
I'm torn.
Sorry.
I'm torn. I'm torn about it.
It doesn't need it. It doesn't. There are multiple fast travel spots.
That's
you go out,
that's the point. Yeah.
The stuff I gather from when I walk from A to B is far more important than just getting on and mounting up and running from A to B. And that's an issue I actually have with World of Warcraft, is that I'm so busy, doing my quests as fast as I possibly can on a mount as fast as I possibly can, especially when I create a new character, that you're never slowing down to smell the roses. And I'm not saying you need to smell the roses, but a lot of the game of Aeternum actually happens between A and B. It's being flagged for PvP. It's finding something new to gather. It's getting a sweet drop off of a creature that you killed, or finally finding that herb that you've been looking for so you can craft something you've been really wanting to craft. A lot of it happens on the road to your next step, and isn't that the draw and appeal of an MMO? Isn't that the excitement and the adventure of playing a role-playing game rather than just being like, mount up, poof, peace, dude. I'm going to hit the space bar, shoot straight up, and I know talking about a flying mount and talking about a ground mount are totally different, but bear with me. Just hit the space bar, shoot straight up in the air, fly all the way over to your next spot, and drop down into the ground, ignoring everything underneath. Oh, it's just such a shame. Even Blizzard recognized that it was a mistake and took flying mounts away from future expansions, at least temporarily, because
that wasn't
so much of the adventure it wasn't. But I think it was the right call. It's like, dude, you give people these mounts, it's like the cheat code. You gotta use it. It's like, oh man, what was the game I used to play? What was that? If you played Age of Empires 2 and you opened up the chat console and you put in I think it was Motherlode, you got a ton of gold. E equals MC squared got you a Corvette with a rocket launcher on it in Age of Empires 2. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I didn't know that. No.
Freaking glorious.
I knew some of the ones for StarCraft and Warcraft.
Zoo Tycoon.
But as soon as you learn those cheats, it becomes nearly impossible not to use them, and you lose a lot of the joy of where that game was built.
Well, the challenge, Right. I'm just gonna say I'm a little torn on this, because I'm not a huge fan. I feel like mounts would be better in this game than what they currently have. I am not a huge fan of the fast travel in this. And maybe I'm in the minority here, but an instant teleport, even with a cost that's really not that expensive, because you get Azoth all the time in this game. Like, I very rarely saw myself low in Azoth at all. But just the instant teleportation with everything you're carrying, I'm not a huge fan of that. It's just too easy. Maybe if the cost was steeper, I don't know. But if I would prefer mounts, and I'd rather see mounts over what we have currently. And maybe they could make it more realistic too, where you get a mount from a settlement, you ride it to another settlement and stable it. And if you stop between if you're carrying goods, right? Like we talked about last week, it'd be awesome if you could carry goods, and that was the main way you could transport goods between towns, right? Well, if you stop along the way and that horse happens to die in combat, right? Because you die and then the NPC or the player kills your horse or takes your horse. I don't know. You lose the investment in that mount, right? That would be kind of cool. Then you wouldn't be seeing people mounting up all the time because they wouldn't have mounts all the time. They would use it only
that's fair.
when
that's a whole
needed.
different design.
It's full different design. I know, and I'm an ideas guy, so I like thinking of how things could be different. But I'm not a fan of the fast travel it is. At least in World of Warcraft, you actually still had to physically fly when you took a flying a griffin or whatnot. You still had to physically fly there, so it took some time, and it felt more realistic and flavorful. And I'm not a huge fan of the teleporting. I don't know, but yeah, I think mounts have a place. I think
fair.
They would be better than the teleporting. If we're talking about what's currently in place, I'm not a huge fan. I feel like it makes the game
That's
easier.
right. It makes the podcast far more interesting when someone else on the podcast is wrong. So thank you for bringing that opinion to the table.
An inn, right? Having a fast travel to an inn or a home, I think would have been perfect enough. And then mounts to get places faster. But, I do agree with you guys that maybe with the current system they have, mounts aren't the right answer right now. But eventually they could do it, and they could make it really cool. Guild Wars 2 was kind of interesting because the mounts actually were unique.
Yes, it is.
They
They
traveled differently. One was good at jumping vertically. One was good at leaping, over horizontal distances. One was fast. One was good over water. So you had to have the right mount for the job, and that was kind of cool. It felt more like a puzzle because you wanted to make sure you had to bring the right mount to get to the right place or to get and that was cool. That was unique. I think they have an opportunity here to try something unique, try something realistic, so that way mounts aren't taking over the game and everyone is always mounting up for every little thing. I think they have a good opportunity here. So those are my opinions.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, World of Warcraft, after they decided to bring flying back because of the negative feedback from saying they weren't going to implement it anymore. I kind of like the way they did it, and this might be an unpopular opinion too, but they essentially made you go out and explore the world and do all the content within the world on foot before you could obtain flying back into the world and skip all of that stuff. And I didn't necessarily think all its content was great, so being forced to kind of do all that wasn't particularly fun. But something like that where you earn the right to have a mount because you know the world really well, or you've had all of these experiences throughout the world, and you don't necessarily need to go about exploring all the time, I think would be important. I played World of Warcraft Classic within the last few months, and I gotta say, I mean, I have learned things about that game just because I was forced to walk places and do different things that I never knew about in the 15 years I've played that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the types of things you're going to learn from not having a mount system and skipping everything, right? I know that it's annoying sometimes to walk places, but you're also not going to learn as much about the world, and you're just not going to be as immersed, I think, within the environment because of it. So Big Papa's wrong. The end. Okay.
There we go.
No, I just no, I'm kidding. No,
I'm just
I
extreme.
Totally understand.
I'm agree
No.
with you guys, but I'm just extreme because I'd rather not even have a teleport. Right? It's like
Yeah,
you're talking immersion.
I can understand
that
not
defeats
wanting
immersion,
the teleport,
Yeah.
right? And they try to say it's because the Azoth allows you to go to these locations, and I think that argument falls apart really quickly. But I do kind of like that you're able to get to a new base of operations, essentially, right? Because each zone's got a town, and you can kind of move to the new zone, and then that quickly, but then you still have to walk, and you still have to travel out from there on your own, right? You can't just teleport to any location for the most part. I think there are a few non-town locations you can teleport to. But I kind of like that idea, because when you go to a new zone, oftentimes you're planning to spend a lot of time there, and you're not going to really need to fast travel a lot between
That's
the
true.
different zones.
It is different than other games, because if you've picked Windsward or you've picked First Light as your base of operations, for the first 25 levels, you don't really venture out of that very often, except to do the main quest. So that's fair.
Right.
All right, well, that is our show. It's kind of a longer one this time, but some pretty important stuff we wanted to hit on and talk about, especially with the industry news that had been coming up and with the big delay. So that being said, we are still going to be good to go for the next few weeks. We may not have Big Papa with us next week, as he is expecting any day now having another child.
My wife is
Congratulations,
expecting,
Big Papa.
But,
Your wife is? Well, you're also expecting... You're expecting your wife
to
have a baby, right?
No,
so
I'm
he
excited.
may or may not be joining us. Big congratulations to him, and we look forward to having him expand his family, and we look forward to bringing you guys more content here in the future. There's lots to talk about in upcoming episodes, things you can look forward to. You say, oh my gosh, this is delayed, why do I even want to listen to this? Well, we still got a lot to talk about. We want to talk about how meta affects a game. We want to talk about stagger. Should stagger still be in or not in the game? There's lots of topics we want to cover, and this gives us the opportunity to explore all of that well before release. Stay tuned. There may be another closed beta on the horizon. We'll keep our eyes open, but if you want to be part of the conversation, you can follow us at Aeternum_radio on Twitter, or join our Discord server in this podcast's description. Come play with us. All of our company information, where we'll be playing, who we'll be playing as, and the factions will be there in the Discord, and we'd love to play with our community. We've had a great time engaging with you guys there. Please continue to do so. It's been a lot of fun, and we look forward to many, many more months doing this. So thanks everybody once again. I am Slacker. I have been your host, joined by both Big Papa.
See you later.
And Ruko.
See you, everyone.
You guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.